Hey guys, this is Full Stuffing Incorporated, and I'm here to give along my list for the most underrated decks right now. And not to say underrated list, we're talking about a list of decks that you should use in this format. The biggest change to this format is that Heavy Metal Foes Electromite is being released, and it gives Pendulum Magicians a massive boost. Not just them, Metal Foes as well, along with Odd Eyes to a bit of a smaller extent. I think that Heavy Metal Foes Electromite will be it's probably going to be everywhere, let's be honest. In my opinion, I think they're going to be better than Spiral. You don't have to hold me to that, but that's what I think at least. So yeah, I think that Pendulum Magicians are going to be the best deck going into this format. And I don't think a ban list is coming out anytime soon. So I might as well give a small discussion, right? So here's my list for the 5 underrated decks in this format in no particular order. First one up is Blue Eyes. And why I think Blue Eyes is very underrated is because they have natural back row hate, and they have quite a bit of aggro and consistency going for them. Although it does suffer quite a bit of consistency, as you're seeing how you see the wrong cards a lot of the time, and there's a lot of stuff you don't want to see. Like cards of consonants while you hold a bunch of level 8s, all of that stuff. They are very good when they want to be. Cards like Melody, Trade-In, so many different other cards, like cards of consonants. Ancient Whitestone actually get the Drag Spirit of White from the deck, which is also further back row hate on top of the others that can play like Twin Twisters to a very effective degree and Cosmic Cyclone. Along with a small Felgrain engine, I think that this deck can do pretty well. And you guys don't have to hold me to that. I just think that the deck can do pretty dang well, because if you think about it, with the small Felgrain engine, you can actually get a Morphish Goliath in the graveyard effectively with Arc Brave, so you can bring it back and lock your opponent out of the extra deck, which is often an instant win, or at least another turn, and sometimes if you go first, sometimes you don't have that opportunity, so it's always nice to have. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Blue Eyes, and I think they can do pretty well. The next entrant on his list is going to be Time Lords, and all of its variants. Yes, I say Time Lords are very underrated. So, why do I think they're underrated? Well, okay, Time Lords can't be destroyed by our artifacts, so it's naturally immune to the Pendulum Graph unless they decide to save the scale. They have a very, very lengthy grind game, which is very helpful against the variants that play Pod Desires. Also, Metaion and Zaphion are very good blowout cards. Considering that Zaphion can spin all your opponent's back row back into the deck, including Pendulum Scales, and Metaion can actually return the monsters back to the hand, not just the Pendulum Magicians themselves, but also the extra monsters they summon often. Not to mention that this deck can play around Baguska pretty well. I mean, unless you count Link monsters that they can make, they can't exactly get around the Time Lords easy, if at all. The only real Achilles heel I could think of is that it's pretty prone to Ash Blossom because of Time Maiden. But if you can play around that, which this deck can to a very excellent degree, considering that both the effects can be Ash Blossom baited very easily, having your opponent waste their copies on that, and they don't spell summon off, so Max C isn't always the best option against Time Lords, and considering how many people don't seem to acknowledge this deck's existence at all, I think it'll be a great surprise at locals or maybe even regional level. And now the third deck is going to be Felgrain Control. I don't know why this deck isn't played more. I mean, I understand it's slower, it runs card demise, all of that stuff, but I think that Felgrain can do quite a bit of stuff. Because similar to Zaphion, the previous entry, Arcbrave Dragon is insane against this matchup. If you flip a Call of the Haunted or something like Arcbrave, then blow out their Pendulum Scales along with other face-up spells and traps that they control. And you get attack points on top of that, and if it gets sent to the graveyard during the next standby phase, they can bring back a level 7 or 8 dragon from your graveyard. Which is very, very freaking good. Considering that you have cards like Dragon Ravine out there, and cards like Card Demise, which can be used to a very, very effective degree these days with this deck, this deck has quite an extensive grind game. Not to mention, it's still pretty budget. I mean, if you want to go out your way and make an extra deck for this deck, you can. I definitely encourage it. But it doesn't necessarily need one if you're going against a Pendulum Magician matchup. And they can't seem to make extra deck monsters that often, but if you made a build that can, then feel free. But we're talking about Felgrain Control with Card Demise, all that good stuff. But yeah, pretty underrated deck. I feel like it needs some recognition, and I feel like it can do something. You know, number 4 is going to be a lesser entrant, in my opinion, but ABCs. ABCs need way more representation than what they're getting. Considering they can banish the scales, and they have quite a bit of ways to enable their plays. I mean, they suffer a bit from consistency, because set rotation got hit, all of that stuff, but they still have quite a bit of power plays behind them. Making Decode Dragon Buster on a consistent basis Access a Cyber Dragon Infinity with Galaxy Soldier, which is not hard to do if you run Transmodify, which triggers your pieces, and grants you another Galaxy Soldier on top of that. I think this deck can do something. I mean, it's not always the most consistent deck in the world, but if you get those plays off, they go off really hard. I mean, how many decks can you really name that can go ABC Dragon Buster, Cyber Dragon Infinity, Deco Talker? It does it so consistently, it's amazing. And these are often 2 or 3 card combos, so yeah, it has a small learning curve. You're playing this post-link, play link format, but then go to post-link with link format. Dear God. But I don't think that this deck can do something. I think it can top every once in a while, and I think they can do something. And now this last entrance is going to be really, 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 really obscure for you newer players. And I feel that many of the older players are going to be pretty confused by my choice here. But I think that Fire Kings are going to be one of the most underrated decks in this format. And why I think that is because we still have Fire King Island. We have Draconic Diagram if you want to go out your way to add the True King engine, which can trigger your pieces. And also the fact that Garunix, it's easy to loop Garunix these days. And the fact that Garunix on summon blows up every other monster in the field. Yeah. And also the fact that with Garunix being able to blow itself up, if you summon like another Garunix and blow up that one, it brings itself back to the next standby phase, doing it again. Like no matter what your opponent tends to do, they start off with an empty board. And it may not be as effective as it would be against Spirals. I mean, against Spirals, it's pretty tricky to try to justify that, but this is the fact that it can wipe out Pendulum Magician board single-handedly is pretty insane. And the fact that, other than Spiral Sleeper, any monster equipped with Last Resort, for that matter, is pretty much immune to Garunix. Just the sheer fact that it can just wipe boards is insane. Just think about that. Like, it blows the board every turn. It leads your opponent to try to get their resources back. And also, this deck can run Sacred Phoenix of Nethys pretty well. Oh, dude, how many people remember that card? I sure do, because it can get rid of all the back row on the field. I mean, it triggers the pendulum scales of the magicians. But it's not really that bad, considering that they would have to start managing their resources better. And it may not be that big of a struggle, but it can be a pretty big hindrance. And by extension, I do want to mention the Volcanic engine as well. Volcanic deck, because they have Volcanic Scattershot, which is a board wipe during either player's turn if you send Scattershot. You plus a lot off of what was his face? Blaze Accelerator Reload. Plenty of floodgates to use. There is so much the Volcanic deck can do too, but I wanted to mention the Fire King deck just because they have quite a bit going for them. I mean, you can disagree. I think this deck's underrated. It's not perfect, but I just think it's underrated in my own opinion. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, join the fight for Army, and together we will beat the meta. So, guys, next time, hopefully you enjoy my next video, but until then, take care of yourselves.